women's position in Buddha's time, right? So during our last lecture, we discussed about women's position within the early Vedic period and the later Vedic period. And tonight we are going to talk about the women's position in Buddha's time, right? So it is quite a very short topic. We could finish it, I think, a bit earlier. And next week, we will be discussing about the political and social development within the 6th century BCE, political, social, and economic development. That would be our last topic under this subject, right? So let's look at the today's lecture, right? So on the analysis, it had been found that Buddhist ideology is all about the kindness towards all the living beings, right? So we know that when we talk about the Buddhist ideology or the Buddhism, the specific doctrine is all about the kindness towards all the human beings, right? So, to animals, to men, to women, to no matter which class the people belongs to every class. Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, no class division is there within the Buddhism. All the human beings and animals, Buddha had compassion towards them, right? All were treated equally, no matter what class or no matter whether the person is a man or a woman, all are treated equally within according to the doctrine Buddhism, right? So thus in its attitude, Buddhism was much more liberal religion, right? So we know that Buddhism was a more liberal religion or doctrine comparatively. When we compare the Buddhism, the specific doctrine, with the Brahmanism, it is a more liberal doctrine, Buddhism, right? So thus Buddhism could be recognized as a boon to the oppressed class, which it tried to provide equalism to all the class as well as to the oppressed women, right? So Buddhism during the 6th century BCE, during the later Vedic period, we learned that the society was divided into several hierarchies, right? So according to the Brahminical order was there, right? So by the later Vedic period, Brahmins, they tried to dominate the entire society, right? So they were the ones who made that division, made those hierarchies, 4 hierarchies: Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, according to their willingness, and they tried to dominate the entire society, Brahmins, right? So Brahminical order was there. Thereby what happened was the lower classes, they were really ill-treated, right? No, it was not an egalitarian society, no equalism was there. Rather what happened was the lower class people were always oppressed. They were oppressed class, right? Lower class people, especially when it comes to the Shudras, right? They were oppressed class. They had no chance. They had no equality within the society, right? So thereby, but Buddha, according to the Buddhist doctrine, Buddha treated all the people equally, right? So thereby Buddhism could be identified as a boon to especially to the oppressed class, right? Buddhism is for all the people, to the entire society, no matter what, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, or Shudras, anybody could embrace the religion Buddhism, anybody could follow the Buddhism, and basically it was a boon to especially to the oppressed class. Shudras, they had never they had a chance to embrace any religion, right? To follow any religion, in order, even though they wanted to get attain spiritual advancements or to follow any religion, they had no chance. No, they were not given any chance by the Brahmins, right? So thereby Buddhism gave that chance to follow the religion for all the people. Thereby Buddhism could be identified as a boon to, especially to the oppressed class. Not only to the oppressed class, but also to the oppressed women, right? So no matter what, when we talk about the women, they all were, even they belong to Brahmanism, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, or Shudras, women as a whole, they were oppressed, right? they were oppressed. But Buddhism, they always Buddha tried to give a standard position to women within the society, right? So women could be started to make their own recognition with the Buddhism, right? Women started to make their own recognition within the religion Buddhism, right? But Buddha felt that women should deserve the compassion as well as the equality, right? Buddha always felt that, Buddha worked for that, to give the compassion, not only the compassion, but also give women the equality within the society, freedom based on sense or justice. Thereby, Buddha always worked on it to improve the status of women within the society, right? So Buddha always tried to and worked to improve the status of the women of the society, right? During the later Vedic period, as well as the within the Brahminical period, giving a birth to son was more welcomed and indispensable, right? So we talk this fact, right? Even though now the Vedic era was divided into two time periods, early Vedic period and later Vedic period, right? So during the early Vedic, we discussed this fact last week. Early Vedic period, it was an egalitarian society was there. Women had a equal position within the society, even though within the early Vedic period also, even though the women given that recognition within the society, birth of a son was more welcomed than a birth of a girl, right? So they believed that only the men could attain the moksha or salvation. Women could not attain the moksha or salvation. Only men could attain the moksha or salvation, because actually that is very unfair to think like that, because actually what happened was, if the women were always capable, right? So we learned the fact that during the early Vedic period, women were more talented and they more intelligent women were there, right? Poets, teachers, psychologists, we learned that fact, right? So women during the early Vedic period, they had recognized occupations within the society. They earned for themselves, right? So but what happened when it comes to the later Vedic period, women were restricted, they were marginalized within the society, they never given a chance to follow any religion, right? So the society was restricted them, and thereby society wanted to tell that women could not attain the moksha, right? They were never given any chance to follow the religion, and the society is trying to tell that women could never gain the moksha, right? So that is very unfair. If the women were given that chance, they would definitely attain that any kind of salvation or moksha, because they had that capability, right? So because only men were given the chance to follow religious order, right, to follow spiritual advancement, but women were restricted, right, during the later Vedic period, where Brahminical order secluded women from all the spiritual advancements and social activities. During the Brahminical order, during the later Vedic period, women were secluded from all the spiritual advancements. They were never given a chance to follow any religion, and not only to follow any religion, but also from the social activities, right? They were isolated. They were never given chance to go to the society, right? They were isolated inside the homes, right? But within the tradition Buddhism, girls were also welcomed to the religion, and thereby birth of girls and adoption of girls were accepted. Within the Buddhism, what happened was, women were also welcomed to the religion. They were given the chance to follow the religion, right? Thereby what happened was, Buddha tried to give the identity to the girls. Birth of girls and adoption of girls were accepted within the Buddhism, right? Gautama Buddha always believed in women-man equality. Gautama Buddha always emphasized the fact that women-man equality, no difference is there, right? So they both have equal intelligent levels, right? prepubescent marriages were not accepted or encouraged by the religion Buddhism. Right, so during the early Vedic period, actually there was a very peaceful conditions were there to the women, but during the later Vedic period, we learned this. Prepubescent marriages were encouraged within the later Vedic period, or child marriages. But within the Buddhism, by the Gautama Buddha, he never accepted the prepubescent or child marriages. Right. So according to the Buddhist tradition, girls had entire freedom to choose their life partners according to their wish. Right. So similar to the early Vedic period. During the early Vedic period, also both the girls as well as boys, they had their entire freedom to choose their life partners when it comes to marriages, right? So, but later Vedic period, we learned that they were, especially girls, they never given that chance to select their life partners. Rather, they had to obey to their parents, right? So, they usually parents, fathers, basically father, because patriarchal society was there. Father was the one who decided or chose the partner for the daughters, right? So thereby daughters always had to obey their parents or father. But when it comes, according to the Buddhism, Buddha emphasized the fact that no prepubescent marriages were encouraged, and also the girls, especially girls, had the entire freedom to choose their life partners when it comes to the marriages according to their wish. And also the age at which a woman could marry was 20. Right, so the permission was given. The age at which a woman could marry was 20, according to the Buddhism, during the 6th century BCE. Now, even nowadays, the prepubescent marriages are restricted. When it comes to the Sri Lankan situation, the age at which a woman could get married is the age of 18. That is the minimum age limit, right? 18, right? So and during the 6th century BCE, according to the Buddhist tradition, Buddha permitted as the minimum age limit as the 20, right? Prepubescent marriages were not encouraged by the Buddha, basically because the concept of child marriage was a negation. Concept, if we take the child marriage, the concept was a negation, because actually it is a contract between two mature and autonomous individuals, right? So when we talk about a marriage, it should be it is a kind of a relationship or contract between two mature and autonomous individuals, right? Mature and autonomous. But if it is a child, then child is not mature enough, and also child is not autonomous, right? So thereby Buddha emphasized the fact that child marriage was a negation, because in an actual marriage, it is a contract between two mature and autonomous individuals. Secondly, child marriages were offense against the womanhood, because women's consent never sought or taken. Right. So Buddha emphasized the child marriages as an offense, because women's consent was never taken when it comes to a child marriages. Right. Thus, child marriages were identified as an insult towards women under the Buddhist tradition, right? So, within the Buddhist tradition, child marriages or prepubescent marriages were identified as an insult towards women. Insult towards women. Women was treated as one independent entity within the tradition of Buddhism. Within the Buddhism tradition, Buddha strictly emphasized that to treat women as an individual entity. To treat women as an individual entity, because women can take their decisions according to their wish. They had that capability. They should have that right. Thereby, Buddha treated women as an individual entity, right? They were given that standard, they were given that recognition within the society. Buddhist tradition showed greater liberality towards women. For instance, the best example for this is permitting women to become nuns, right? So within the we learned the fact that Buddhism is a very liberal religion towards women, right? So the best example for this is permitting women to enter into the ordination or to become nuns. In early Vedic period, there was an advanced education system prevailed for women as well. We learned this last week, right? So within the early Vedic period, there was an advanced education system for women specifically, right? This concept was encouraged. Actually, this was lost when it comes to the later Vedic period because women were restricted, they were marginalized, they were never given the chance to get their education, right? So they were restricted within the society. But the early Vedic period, they had an advanced education system specifically for the women, right? So Buddha encouraged this concept, right? Buddha wanted to give a proper education to women, right? They received elementary education. Women during the 6th century BCE, they basically received their elementary education from their fathers, brothers, and uncles. They were taught by their fathers, brothers, or uncles. Those women secured admission to the monastic order and continued their education in monasteries, right? So they were given chance to continue their education in monasteries. The education given to nuns and novices were different from the education which was given to men. During the 6th century BCE, the education given to nuns and novices were somewhat different from the education which was given to the men. Right? Buddhism recognized the dampati, which means the joint owners of the house, right? So according to the Buddhism, both the wife and the husband, they were considered as the joint owners, even though patriarchal society was there, even though the father was the main person within the society or the husband was the main person within the family. Buddhism recognized as it was a joint, they were as joint owners within the house. They both had equal responsibilities, equal rights, both the mother and the father, or the husband and the wife, right? In order to emphasize this aspect, Buddha gave the wife the right to inherit the husband's property, right? So during the later Vedic period, wife never get the right to inherit the husband's property. When husband dies, during the later Vedic period, the wife never get the right to inherit the property. Rather, if it is a daughter, then daughter could inherit the father's property, but widowed wife never got the right to own the husband's property during the later Vedic period, right? Daughter had the chance to own the father's property during the father's death, but wife never get the chance to own the husband's property when it comes to the death of the husband, right? So in order to emphasize this fact, what Buddha did was Buddha emphasized the right to inherit the husband's property to the wife. Widowed wife could had the right to inherit to own the husband's property, right? She got the right to own the property. According to Buddhism, wife was husband's helpmate and the companion, right? So according to the Buddhism, no difference there is no difference within husband and wife. They both are equal individuals, right? They both are equal individuals within the household activity when it comes to the household activities, right? So they were like friends, right? Within the Buddhism, Buddha tried to emphasize the fact that both the husband and wife are like friends, and they should have like mutual and reciprocal relationship in between them. And the wife was identified as husband's helpmate or companion, right? Who had equal authority when it comes to the household tasks, right? Even though the patriarchal society was there, even though the father was the head person within the society, when it comes to the household activities, they both were equal. Both the mother and father were equal, right? So Buddha tried to give that equal position to women, or to wife, or to mother, right? Women were treated with a lot of respect within the tradition of Buddhism. That was happened always. That was happened. Buddha tried to treat women with respect all the time. They were free to practice the noble eightfold path, noble four truths for salvation, right? So no restrictions were there. Women were free to follow or to practice noble eightfold path as well as noble four truths for their salvation. Like when it comes to the when we talked this within the later Vedic period, the women had no chance to follow any religion, right? But no restrictions were made within the Buddhism. They had entire freedom to practice or to follow noble eightfold path, noble four truths for the salvation. Even though the patriarchal family type was prevalent here, equal identification was given to both the husband and wife, right? Buddhism permitted divorce in exceptional cases, right? The Buddhism, within the Buddhism, permitted divorce in exceptional cases. Only in exceptional cases, those are divorce is granted if the wife was barren, right? Divorce was granted if the wife was barren, or if a partner was guilty of adultery, right? If the husband was guilty of adultery, then the divorce was granted. And if the wife was barren, or if the wife has not does not have the ability to make children, then the divorce was granted, right? Sick wife to be looked after by the husband. According to the Buddhism, if a sick wife was there, then she should be looked after by the husband, right? Till then, women were forced to occupy a secondary position within the social and domestic arena, right? During the later Vedic period, women in both social as well as domestic arena, women also occupied a secondary position, right? But due to Buddha's correct guidance, the society started to understand the fact that where the both the men and women have equal identification within the society, right? They were given equal identification, equal recognition within the society, right? So where the marriages were not a mere contract, but a sacrament which extend the relationship between two persons for the lifetime, right? So marriage now during the later Vedic period, women were treated as slaves or servants to their husbands. Wives were treated as slaves or servants to their husbands, right? But Buddha emphasized the fact that there is no indifference between them. Rather, marriage is a reciprocal relationship in between two persons throughout the lifetime, right? So the wife was identified as the helpmate or the companion of the husband, right? The Buddhist social code also emphasized compassion on prostitutes, right? So when it comes to the courtesans or prostitutes, right? So the society had a very negative image on prostitutes, right? So actually it was an occupation. It was occupation during that period, right? So prostitution could be identified as the one of the oldest occupations in the world, right? Buddha never tried to give a negative image on the prostitutes, right? So Buddha had the compassion towards the prostitutes, right? Consequently, prostitutes were also admitted. Not only the normal people, but also prostitutes were also admitted to the Sangha without any restrictions within the Buddhism. According to the Brahminical order, now when it comes to the funeral rites, according to the Brahminical order, funeral rites were only carried out by men and women were restricted, right? Within the Brahminical order, according to the Brahminical religion, funeral rites, when it comes to the funeral rites, only men were permitted to carry out the funeral rites and women were restricted, right? But Buddha believed that Buddhism is a special religion which is based upon the good action, good deeds, but not on funeral rites, right? Buddha believed the fact that Buddhism is a religion which is focused on more into good deeds rather than focusing more into the funeral rites, right? Thus, according to Buddhism, funeral ceremony is a very simple, right? So according to Buddhism, funeral ceremony is a very simple ceremony where it could be performed by widow, daughter, and son is not compulsory. When it comes to the Buddhism, son is or man is not compulsory to perform funeral rites, where a widow or daughter or any woman can perform funeral rites when it comes to the Buddhism, right? According to the Buddhist attitude, no vows or rituals are involved in the event of marriage. Within the event of marriages also, no vows or rituals are involved. Rather, Buddha laid down duties and responsibilities of a husband and wife in a very descriptive manner, right? There are no vows and rituals when it comes to the Buddhist marriages. Rather, but Buddha did was what Buddha laid down special duties and responsibilities towards husband and towards wife in a very descriptive manner, right? So if you have, I think you may have heard about this within the Singalovada Sutta. Buddha has indicated the duties and responsibilities to both husbands and wife in a very descriptive manner, right? Buddha had laid down these responsibilities and duties. Thus, according to Gautama Buddha, marriage relationship is a reciprocal one with mutual rights and obligations. Reciprocal one with mutual rights and obligations. And marriage is a contract between equals. They both are equal, both the wife and husband, they both are equal. No indifference is there, right? So it is a contract between two equal people, right? Reciprocal relationship. Mutual and reciprocal relationship in between husband and wife, right? Within the lifetime of the Gautama Buddha inaugurated a campaign for liberation of Indian womanhood to brought them the equal position within the society. He condemned the caste structure, excessive ritualism, and sacrifices. We learned this, right? He denied the existence of Godhead and emphasized the emancipation by individual effort, right? Buddha always emphasized the emancipation by the individual effort and denied the existence of the gods, right? The basic doctrine of the Buddhism is all about the salvation by one's own effort, right? So Buddhism always emphasized on salvation should be gained by one's own effort, right? Buddha saw the equal spiritual potential within the both women and men, right? So when it comes to the spiritual potential, both the men and women had equal spiritual potential, right? Buddha saw that equal spiritual potential within the both men and women, right? So then thereby Buddha inaugurated the order of the nuns, right? So I think we discussed about this during our diploma course. After a considerable hesitation, even Buddha was not given the ordination to women at the first time, by first sight rather. Buddha also hesitated at the very first to start the dispensation for women. After considerable hesitation, due to the continuous requests made by Mahaprajapati Gotami as well as by the Ananda Thero, Buddha inaugurated the order of bhikkhunis or nuns, right, after a considerable hesitation. This could be identified as one of the earliest organization for women, right? So the women dispensation or order of nuns could be identified as one of the earliest organization for women, right? So the Buddhist compensation is, we have learned this, or the sasana or dispensation is consisted with bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, upasaka and upasika, monks, nuns, laymen and lay women. And higher spiritual status were within the reach of both men and women, right? We learned this. Buddha saw the equal spiritual potential in both men and women, right? No masculine assistance or priestly intermediary is required to attain the salvation within the Buddhism, right? So when it comes to the Brahmanism, the masculine assistance is required, and also priestly intermediary is always required to follow any sacrificial ceremony or any rituals. But when it comes to the religion Buddhism, no masculine assistance or priestly intermediary is required to achieve the salvation. Both these two orders practiced in a most same manner. Establishment of Bhikkhu order was something revolutionary within the Indian history. Now, Bhikkhu order or the monk order was something revolutionary within the Indian history, because earlier almost all the ascetics were individual wonders. There were no any body corporate, like there was no any established organization for ascetics, right? So thereby even the bhikkhu order, the monk order ordination also could be identified as something revolutionary within the Indian history. An extension of these monastic principles to women, right? Nun order was even more revolutionary, right? So the starting the bhikkhu order was revolutionary because within the Indian history, because now there were several ascetics or one individual wonders were there during the ancient India, but there was no organized body corporate like Buddhist dispensation, right? Like bhikkhu order, right? So when it comes to the nun order, it was more revolutionary, even more revolutionary within the Indian history. Prajapati Gautami took the headship for this, right? So Prajapati Gautami took the headship for the nun ordination. She had that aspiration. This order of nuns brought a huge importance and recognition to Indian women. Order of nuns brought a huge importance and recognition to Indian women. Buddha took this decision to establish the nun order during the fifth year of the enlightenment, fifth year of the Buddhahood. This was a landmark within the Indian Buddhist history. Buddha opened the doors by inaugurating the nun dispensation. Buddha opened the doors for women's entrance to monastic life, right? Thousands of women, after inaugurating the dispensation of nuns order, thousands of women flocked to join the order of bhikkhunis. Thousands of women joined the nuns dispensation of nuns, right? Women joined the dispensation of Buddhism due to several reasons, right? So the women who lived within the 6th century BCE, they joined the dispensation of Buddhism due to several reasons. Now, let's look at what are those reasons why they joined the dispensation of Buddhism or nuns order. Many women joined the Buddhism as the Buddha's teachings made sense for them, right? Many women joined because Buddha's teachings made sense for them, and because they had the desire to attain the liberation, right? They had the desire to attain the liberation. And some joined as bhikkhunis because their husbands and relatives became bhikkhus, right? Some joined the ordination because their husbands and other relatives became bhikkhus. And some joined because they were widows or their relatives were dead, right? So they were widows and they had no other choice within the society, thereby they entered the ordination. Some poor women joined the order because they could secure themselves within the society, right? Some poor women during the 6th century BCE, they joined the order because they could secure, they could seek some kind of security within the dispensation of Buddhism. Some young women chose the renunciant life over the married life, right? So some young women, they choose the renunciant life over the married life. Courtesans or the prostitutes were also allowed to join the order without any restrictions, right? So those are the reasons why many women flock towards the Buddhism, right? Or towards the nuns dispensation during the 6th century BCE. Women had more freedom and independence within the order of bhikkhunis than anywhere else, right? So within the dispensation of Buddhism, within the nuns order, they had their freedom and independence. Bhikkhunis had their freedom and independence. They were not anyone's slaves or servants anymore, right? Bhikkhunis were not anyone's slaves or servants anymore. Buddhist nuns played a vital role in propagation of Buddhism, right? The Buddhist monks also, they played a vital role in the propagation of Buddhism, so as the Buddhist nuns. Buddhist nuns also, they too played an important role when it comes to the propagation of Buddhism, right? So women during the women or the nuns during the 6th century BCE, there was a group of senior nuns called they composed verses called Therigathas, right? These Buddhist nuns composed verses Therigathas, and thereby they were identified as chroniclers during that period, right? So due to these composed Therigathas, they were identified as, these senior nuns were identified as chroniclers during the 6th century BCE. The order of bhikkhunis was consisted with large number of distinguished women from various social backgrounds, right? So during the 6th century BCE, the order of bhikkhunis was consisted with large number of distinguished and significant number of women from various social backgrounds. Many of these bhikkhunis attained supreme bliss of enlightenment, right? Many of these bhikkhunis or many of these nuns attained supreme bliss of enlightenment. In many places, especially within the Pali Canon and within the Therigathas, it has indicated about distinguished bhikkhunis. There were many distinguished bhikkhunis during the 6th century BCE. Among them, Prajapati Gautami, right? Prajapati Gautami, first bhikkhuni to the dispensation, Utpalavanna and Kema, right? So they were traditionally regarded as foremost of the bhikkhunis, right? So the merchant families represented Badda, Kundala, Kesi, Sujata, right? So likewise, there were many distinguished nuns or bhikkhunis within the 6th century BCE, right? So actual number of the theories or the actual number of nuns involved during the 6th century BCE within the order was not mentioned. There were many nuns were there within the Buddhist order, right? So, but the actual number in a numerical identification was not there. Actual number of theories involved is not mentioned in any chronicles, right? Apart from these theories and arahants, there were many women lay disciples like upasakas and savakas who embraced the religion, right? So so far we talked about the like Prajapati, Gautami, Utpalavanna, Kema. They were nuns, right? Or bhikkhunis. Apart from these bhikkhunis or nuns, there were many lay disciples who embraced the religion Buddhism. There were many upasikas who embraced the religion Buddhism. Not only bhikkhunis, but also lay disciple women played an important role within the dispensation of Buddhism. Not only the bhikkhunis, but also lay disciples like upasikas, they too played a vital role when it comes to the propagation of Buddhism. They played a vital role, and also for the development of Buddhism, they played an important role. quite number of these women attained some level of enlightenment, and few even became arahants. Upasika, these lay-visible women also attained some level of enlightenment, and even few became arahants, these lay-visibles. Most importantly, wealthy lay women financially supported the dispensation of Buddhism. During the 6th century BCE, there were many lay women or lay disciples or upasikas who embraced the Buddhism. They financially, in terms of money, materials for robes, bowls, food, likewise, they financially supported to the development of Buddhism. Not only that, but also during the first 7th and 8th centuries of Buddhism in India, wealthy queens also patronized the Buddhism, right? So apart from those wealthy lay women, some wealthy queens were also patronized the Buddhism during the first centuries of the Buddhism, right? So that is all about the women's position within the Buddha's period, and I separately sent you a women's position within the Jainism, right? So I gave a question like open book assignment on the women's position within the Jainism, right? So, and I have added some important notes to this lesson as well, Jainism and women. If we learned about the Jainism, a non-Vedic Shramanic tradition, it was one of the important characteristic features of Jain asceticism is liberal attitude towards the women, right? So similarly, likewise in Buddhism, Mahavira was also, or the Mahavira was the teacher of the Jainism, this specific tradition. He also had the liberal attitude towards the women, and they are permitted to embrace the ascetic life. Likewise, similar as to the Buddhism, the Jain women also given the chance, they were also permitted to embrace the ascetic life. Right, during the period of Tirthankaras, women ascetics have always featured a vital manner and have exceeded the number of male ascetics. Right, during these Tirthankaras within the Jain order, within the chronicles or the literal sources, it has mentioned that in some cases, in some situations, the number of the female ascetics exceeded the number of male ascetics within the Jain order. Right, the ascetic practices and code of conducts were merely same for both nuns and monks. Right, within the Jain tradition, ascetic practices and code of conducts were merely same for both nuns and monks. No difference was there. Where it is characteristic by severe mortification practices such as fasting and etc., which there were no complete indifference in. Right. So when it comes to all the Jain tradition, all the practices, ascetic practices and code of ethics were similar to both nuns and monks. When it comes to the severe mortification practices like fasting and all, they were also similar to both men and women, right? Female ascetics as well as to male ascetics, right? Even the severe mortification practices were also same for both men and women, right? The life of the Jain women ascetic was essentially an itinerant one and correspondingly with total detachments, right? So they had an itinerant lifestyle and the correspondingly with total detachments, right? So the main objectives are those ahimsas, brahmacharya, and other norms relating to the self-control through bodily mortification. So we discussed those, right? So another important fact is Jain women ascetics played a vital role within the society. right? So Jain women ascetics played a vital role, right? So they were seen as articulate and vital representatives within the religious order, right? So their duty and the main duty and responsibility was to take care of Jain women, wives and daughters, right? So the responsibility and the duty of the Jain women ascetics, right? Women ascetics duty and responsibility was to take care of the Jain women, wives and daughters, right? Thereby, Jain women ascetics played a vital role towards the Jain society and make them properly educated, right? Women ascetics had the responsibility to take care of the Jain women, daughters and wives and make them properly educated, right? They emphasized stress on the education of women. Mahavira or the Jain tradition basically emphasized or stressed on the education of the women, right? Like Buddha did, likewise the Buddha, right? So that is all about the Buddha's attitude towards women, and I gave you a separate note on the Mahavira or the Jain attitudes towards the women. This is an just a summary to that specific note, right? So that is all about today, right? So then next week I'm planning to start the potential social developments, political and social developments within the 6th century BC. That could be our last topic for this subject, and I'm not planning to give you any questions tonight. Go through the lecture note, right? Go through the lecture note and start studying thoroughly. And I will send you a question. I will go through your past papers, and according to your past papers, I will send you some questions for you to practice, right? So then you will have your next class in next week, because I want to finish all the discussing all the subjects, and I want to discuss more and more questions with you, right? So next week you will have the class at 8 o'clock. I will send you the lecture note by most probably by Thursday, right? So study well, go through your all the lecture notes, right? So if you have any questions, email me, and I will send you the questions, past paper question. Then you could start practicing them, right? So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please email me. Thank you very much for joining with me. Then
Thank you
I
very
will
much.
wind up now. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Have
you
a good
very
night.
much.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.